Near the Limpopo River, just after sunrise, a shape lay motionless beside the reeds. At first glance, it might have looked like a fallen tree, sunken and still, its bulk pressed deep into the clay. But the swell of her rib cage broke the silence. She was alive. A pregnant elephant, coated in a thick sheen of dried mud, her legs tucked unnaturally beneath her, one tusk buried, the other chipped and scratched from struggle. Her body barely moved. Only the slow lift of her side and the faint twitch of one ear marked her as living. Kodja had seen injuries before. He had followed lion trails, treated fractured limbs, and guided orphaned calves to shelter. But this was different. The earth around her told no story. No sign of attack, no other tracks but her own. She had come alone. She had lain down here, and now she couldn't get back up. He moved closer, boots sinking into the soft edge of the riverbank. The air was damp with night's last breath, cool and quiet. Her eyes shifted when he approached, not in fear, not in recognition, but in simple awareness. She knew something was near. Her breathing changed, from slow to shallower now, lips parting to release a tremble of air. Kodja crouched without speaking, counting each breath, watching the slow flutter of her side. He stayed low, still. Her body told him what she couldn't, the tremble in her belly, the distension along her ribs, and the dark streak of dried fluid trailing behind her hind legs. She had been in labor. Maybe she still was. Maybe something had gone wrong before it could even begin. He reached for the small radio clipped to his side, voice quiet but firm. Large female, pregnant, down, still breathing. The call didn't need more. In this stretch of land, those few words meant every second mattered. A faint groan left her chest. Not a cry, not a call, just the low, involuntary sound of weight pressing into organs not built to hold it for long. Her feet, half sunken in mud, gave no sign of resistance. Flies danced near her eyes, but she didn't blink them away. Her tail was still. She was too tired to move. Kodja scanned her body. No wounds, no broken bones he could see, no snare, no blood. But the absence of injury wasn't safety. If she couldn't stand soon, her own weight would begin to shut her down. Lungs would compress. Blood would settle. Birth might come too fast, or not at all. He stepped into the water, soaked his scarf, and wrung it out gently over her ear. Her skin shivered slightly beneath the touch. Just enough to know she still had strength to feel. He whispered, barely audible even to himself, "You're not alone." A light wind passed through the reeds behind them, brushing the tops of the grass. Somewhere upriver, hippos groaned in their slow way, the world continuing in its indifferent rhythm. But here, time held its breath. Kodja stood again, motioning to a second ranger approaching from the trees. They wouldn't move her yet, wouldn't force her. They would wait, watch, keep her wet, and keep her calm. For now, the choice had to be hers. But time, too, had its limit. If she lay much longer, she would not rise again. If labor began here, the calf could suffocate before ever seeing light. And if her herd were gone, there would be no one left to guide the calf forward. Kodja wiped his hands on his trousers. The ground around the elephant was silent except for her breathing, slower now, softer, fading in and out like a tide. Each moment she stayed down narrowed her chances. But for now, she was breathing, and he was there. Kodja stayed close to her side, knees pressed into the damp soil, his palms resting gently on the cool, ridged skin just above her shoulder. The elephant's breathing had turned shallower now, more erratic. Each inhale rose with effort. Each exhale slipped from her with a tired hush. Her eyes, clouded and slow, opened only in slivers. He could see the crust along the edges, the quiet flicker of discomfort. She didn't look at him. She looked past everything. Not in fear, not in calm, just in the still fog of exhaustion, The sun had climbed just high enough to warm the grasses. The mud beneath her had started to dry in patches. Flies returned in low swarms, gathering near her mouth, her eyes, and her flanks. She didn't swat them. Her ears twitched once, but even that seemed to cost her. Koja dipped his scarf into a shallow pool beside them and dabbed it against the soft skin beneath her eye. She blinked, slowly but clearly. He kept his hand there a moment longer than needed. A second ranger approached behind him, careful not to speak, not to startle. Koja didn't turn. His focus stayed on the rise and fall of the rib cage, on the small contractions that seemed to ripple along the belly, too far apart, too weak, too uncertain. There was movement, yes, but whether it was labor or just strain, no one could tell yet. He placed 2 fingers to the skin behind the front leg, feeling for warmth, for pulse. The beat was faint but there. The team's vet had been notified. They were hours out. Farther if the riverbank softened more. The road would not reach this place. Everything had to be brought in by foot. Supplies, sedative, rope, water. Until then, it was a waiting game. And if she stopped breathing in that time, the game ended. She shifted slightly. Her trunk, stiff and dry, lifted a few inches before curling back to her stomach. It paused there, against the round, stretched flesh. She touched herself lightly, as if confirming what was still inside. Then the trunk dropped again, the tip trembling. Koja watched in silence, one hand resting on his knee, the other still holding the damp cloth. He was thinking about the weight, not just hers, but the calf's. If she gave birth here, like this, the calf might not breathe at all. If she died, the calf would follow. No one would be able to pull a live newborn from a collapsed elephant in time. There was no room for error. Every second she remained down increased the pressure on her organs. If she couldn't shift again, her lungs would begin to fail. Behind him, the other ranger whispered, "Water's coming." It was all they could offer now. Water and stillness. Koja looked to the tree line. No herd, no calls. She had been alone for hours, maybe all night. There were drag marks in the mud upstream, signs she had tried to keep walking before dropping here. Her herd may have moved on without her, or she may have chosen to step away. Elephants did that sometimes, when the pain became too much or the labor too slow. Isolation was their answer to what they didn't understand. She groaned again, softer this time. A low, almost hollow sound. Her foot twitched in the mud, just once, but it was the first movement Koja had seen from her legs all morning. He leaned in closer, touched her skin again, and whispered, "Hold on." Her eye blinked once more. It was not reassurance. It was not recognition. But it was something. She was still there, and if she could stay just a little longer, there might still be time. Koja moved slowly along her side, his hands coated with fine river silt. The scarf he used was soaked again, heavy with water, and he pressed it gently to the folds behind her ear, letting the coolness seep into the overheated skin. Her breath fluttered in response, faint but present. Her trunk lay still near her front leg, its tip curled slightly inward. No calls came from her, no movement beyond the rise and fall of breath. In the hush that followed, a sound shifted beyond the trees. Dry leaves rustled, not loud, not hurried, just steady. Koja paused, lifting his head toward the ridgeline above the river. Between the tall thorn brush and golden grass, a large shape emerged, the steady form of another elephant, standing tall but not advancing. She was older, broader across the shoulders, and her tusks were weathered and worn from time. She stood in shadow, halfway into the clearing, halfway out. Koja stayed kneeling. The ranger behind him stilled. No one spoke. The new elephant did not raise her trunk or trumpet. She did not shift her weight toward the collapsed one. She only stood there, ears angled forward, watching. The air between them hung with something unspoken, a stillness too deliberate to ignore. If they were family, neither one reached across the space. The matriarch lowered her head slightly, her gaze unwavering. Her skin bore old marks, deep creases near the neck and healed abrasions along the flank. She had seen seasons. She had seen calves born and others buried. Now she waited. Koja leaned back, brushing more water onto the mother's shoulder. She shifted, her spine giving a small tremor. Her front leg flexed at the knee, then stopped. Her breathing caught for a moment, then resumed. Her tail moved once. The watching elephant didn't blink. Her body was motionless, but her presence was heavy in the clearing. Koja could feel it, like a pause in a song, drawn out and unfinished. He returned to the mother's side, trailing the wet cloth along her back. Her skin was hot in places, cooler in others, a patchwork of stress. Beneath the stretch of her belly, the faintest roll passed through. It could have been a contraction, or gas, or muscle memory. But it was there. Koja didn't look up again. The matriarch hadn't moved. One of the younger rangers whispered behind him, "Think she's waiting?" Koja gave no answer. There wasn't one that mattered right now. Whether the elephant had come to mourn, to guard, or to simply observe, she wasn't leaving, and she wasn't helping. The mother turned her head slightly. Not toward the water, not toward Koja. Just enough to expose more of her jaw to the sun. Her trunk lifted once more, not high, just enough to brush lightly against the edge of her own tusk. A slow, deliberate touch that trembled and then stilled. That small motion, quiet and instinctive, marked something in Koya's mind. She wasn't surrendering, not yet. But the weight of her body against the ground was growing more dangerous by the hour. If she couldn't rise soon, fluid would fill the lungs. The calf inside would lose oxygen. If labor began in this position, both could be lost within minutes. No ranger, no vet could change that once it started. Koja placed a palm on her side just above the rib cage. "Still here," he said softly. Behind him, the watching elephant took a step forward, then stopped. She lowered her head and stood without sound. Not all elephants help the fallen, not all approach. Sometimes the presence is enough. The breeze passed lightly through the reeds. A bird called once, distant and brief. The mother's eye closed, then opened again. No one moved, nothing changed, but the silence between the two elephants deepened. Not empty, not tense, just waiting. The heat was building now. Morning had crept past the soft quiet of dawn into the stillness that presses heavy against the skin. Insects moved faster. The smell of damp earth thickened. Koja dipped the cloth again, squeezed it once, and pressed it gently to the space just beneath her ribs. The skin there twitched beneath his hand. A response, small but real. The elephant let out a low groan, not loud, not sharp, just the kind of sound a body makes when it holds too much for too long. Her chest expanded, then collapsed, deeper this time, as if testing what was left. Koja shifted his weight, keeping close but not crowding her. Behind him, the others stayed silent, eyes fixed, hands ready but still. No one moved without reason. No one spoke unless needed. Her leg moved. Just one. The rear right. It pulled slightly beneath her body, pressing into the slick mud. Her hip rolled with it, slow, uncertain. Koja watched closely. Her breathing grew harder. The flank above the leg quivered, then stilled again. For a moment she didn't breathe at all. Then her ribs heaved, sharp and uneven, followed by a burst of short exhales. If she rose too fast, she could collapse. If she waited too long, her lungs would fail. Every shift came with risk. Every attempt carried weight. Her front foot scraped forward, dragging across the earth with no lift. Just friction and will. Then her head lowered until her chin nearly touched the ground. Her ears fluttered once, not in frustration, but fatigue. Even the motion of cooling herself seemed too far to reach. Koja moved to her flank, resting the cloth against the space just above her leg, where heat had begun to build dangerously. He placed his other hand gently beside it, anchoring her with quiet steadiness. "You're almost there," he whispered. Her skin twitched. Her trunk stretched out, curling weakly around nothing, then resting again in the dust. But she didn't stop. Her back leg lifted once more, higher this time. The knee buckled, the foot slid, but it did not return to rest. She held it there, trembling, weightless. Koja leaned back, just enough to let her feel the space she needed. The matriarch hadn't moved from the ridge. She remained where she'd been, watching, waiting. Whether it was instinct or knowing, no one could say. But her presence lingered like a held breath. The mother tried again. This time, both back legs strained. Her tail lifted slightly, her spine arched, and for a heartbeat the enormous shape of her began to rise. Mud cracked beneath her, thick with the pull of gravity and weakness. Then her body sagged back into the ground with a heavy thud. The ground beneath her shuddered. Silence followed. No call, no cry. Just breathe. Short, strained, determined. Koja stepped closer, brushing sweat from his own brow. His hands were covered in the same mud that lined her side. His boots sank deeper each time he moved. If she failed again, the stress could send her into shock. If she gave up, her organs would not wait for another attempt. The calf, if still alive, would lose its chance quickly. The body only gives what it can, and she had already given so much. But her ears lifted slightly now, not in full, but enough to catch the breeze. Her chest moved slower, steadier. Her feet didn't curl inward this time. They stayed planted. Koja laid the cloth across her flank once more. The wind rustled the dry tips of grass around them. No one spoke. No one moved. The mother didn't rise again, not yet. But she hadn't gone still, and that, for now, was enough to keep waiting. The sling had arrived by mid-morning, carried across the river on the backs of 4 rangers, its coarse canvas folded like a flag, its straps already muddied from use in rescues past. They laid it near her side without a word. No sudden movements. No loud commands. The plan was simple. If she could lift herself even part way, they would loop it beneath her chest, brace her slowly, and let gravity yield in their favor. But her legs had not moved again since the last attempt. The stillness had returned. Koja crouched low, eyes fixed on the mother's abdomen. Her breathing had steadied but remained shallow. The contractions, if that's what they were, had grown inconsistent. Time passed with few signs. The longer she lay, the higher the risk that her calf was losing oxygen. Without delivery, without movement, the weight of both lives leaned toward collapse. He moved closer, placing a palm against her belly. The warmth was uneven, clustered in pockets, the way a body builds heat when it can no longer spread it evenly. Her tail lay limp across the mud. Her trunk shifted slightly. One slow, uneven breath dragged through her chest and rattled low in her throat. Then came a sound. Soft at first, not breath, not groan, but a tremble. Distant, muffled, low enough that only those closest to the ground felt it before they heard it. Koja stilled. One of the rangers behind him paused mid-step, turning toward the water. The ground vibrated, not across the clearing, but directly beneath her. A deep, syrupy shudder passed through the soaked soil. The mud around her side quivered, faint ripples threading outward in tight circles. Koja leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The sound was not coming from her chest or belly. It was deeper, stranger, a gurgling rise just under the surface. Then the soil beneath her flank swelled, ever so slightly, and cracked. Not from weight, from pressure below. A pocket of wet clay burst open, and from it a shape pushed upward. Soft, glistening, and unmistakably alive. A small, slick trunk broke the surface and waved once, weakly, barely strong enough to rise. It dropped again, covered in silt. Koja moved fast but quietly, dropping to his knees beside the exposed patch. He brushed away the thickest layer of mud. The shape beneath it stirred. A calf, still partially encased, completely hidden by the mother's weight until now, was lying in a shallow depression beneath her. Buried, not by the earth, but by birth. Somehow, during the night, she had delivered in silence. The calf had slipped from her, unseen in the dark, and been caught beneath her massive side as she collapsed. The implications settled instantly. If the calf had not drowned already, it was a miracle. If it had not suffocated beneath her body's weight, it would soon. There were minutes at best. Koja called out low. No panic. Just one word. Enough to bring the vet running. The sling was forgotten. 2 rangers joined him, hands digging carefully, peeling mud away with the delicacy of excavation. The calf stirred again, a faint twitch of its leg, a wet gasp from its nostrils. Its head was turned sideways, the small eye shut tight, the chest rising once, barely, then again. The mother did not react. She remained still, breath steady but thin. She may not have known the calf had come, or perhaps she did, and she had simply lain over it out of instinct to shield it from cold, from scavengers, from anything she could not fight in her weakened state. They worked quickly, clearing enough space for air, enough for the calf's ribs to expand. It coughed, soft, wet, startled by light. Koja placed a hand behind its head, lifting just enough to let it breathe. It was alive, but it was not safe. If the mother shifted now, even slightly, the pressure could crush it. If she didn't shift at all, the calf could still fade before it ever stood. Koja kept his hand in place, the ground soaked and trembling beneath them. The wind passed lightly through the trees behind them. Overhead, the matriarch remained where she had been, unmoved and watching. Her ears swayed slowly in the heat. The newborn shuddered once more beneath Koja's palm. Mud dripped from its side, glistening like sap. It had survived the earth. Now it had to survive the weight of the one who brought it here. The calf was no longer fully buried. One leg lay free now, slick with birth and mud, trembling as if remembering how to move. Its flank rose in shallow rhythm. Breathing. Weak but steady. Koja kept his hand just behind the newborn's skull, fingers cradling the base gently, careful not to lift too far. The mud was soft, but her body had been resting partially on him through the night. Bones and lungs did not easily recover from that weight. The others worked quietly, clearing earth with cupped hands, scooping it away from the shoulders, the ribs, and the small curved spine. No tools, no urgency. Everything is slow. The calf shifted again, this time pressing its front legs forward, folding beneath itself with a low strain that barely made a sound. The head tilted sideways. The trunk lifted just enough to sway once before dropping again into Koja's wrist. The mother hadn't moved. Her body remained still, chest expanding every few seconds, her eyes closed now, or nearly so. Whether she knew the calf had come or not was impossible to say. Her energy was focused inward, but her ears twitched more regularly now. Once she pulled in a deep breath that lifted her ribs higher than they had moved all morning. Koja kept his voice low. "You're not done yet." The words were soft, offered more to the calf than the mother, and more to the air than either. Mud clung thick to the calf's side, matting down the fine hair along its back. Its tail flicked once, weakly. One rear leg moved, curling inward. Then the front legs pushed again, a little harder this time. It managed to lift its chest an inch before sagging back down. The vet leaned in beside Koja, checking the calf's nostrils, its mouth, and the dark curve of its eyes. He didn't speak. He only nodded once. The calf was viable. Not safe, but viable. Still, nothing could be done until the mother moved. No sling, no support. There's no way to shift the calf without risking internal damage. Every second mattered. The calf could suffocate on fluid if its position changed too fast. And if the mother's body rolled again, even slightly, it could crush him without meaning to. One misstep, and both lives would be lost. The wind shifted. A gust moved through the trees and swept across the clearing, kicking up dry leaves along the far ridge. The matriarch, who had not moved in over an hour, shifted her feet slightly, ears lifting as if catching something no one else could hear. Then, slowly, the mother's front leg moved. Just once. It slid forward, dragging a trench into the mud. Her trunk stirred and curled beneath her. Her eye opened again, unfocused but alive. Her chest expanded, harder now, and she let out a deep, hoarse sound. A breath or a call. It was impossible to tell, but it was louder than before. Koja stepped back a pace, giving her room. His boots sank deeper with the weight of each shift. Behind him, another ranger reached for the sling again but did not move forward. The calf tried once more. This time, both front legs pushed. The head lifted and turned, blindly searching. Its trunk pressed against its mother's side. A sound escaped its throat. Soft, broken, instinctive. The mother shifted again. This time her whole body rolled slightly, just enough for the calf's weight to release. It slid free with a wet sigh, landing fully in the open space they had dug. Koja dropped to his knees, hands cradling its head, guiding it upright. The calf stayed on its chest, legs splayed, not yet strong enough to rise, but it was free, breathing, blinking, trying. Koja exhaled once, wiping the mud from its eye. The mother's ear brushed forward, then back, and, for the first time since dawn, the space between them filled with something fragile, alive, and quietly new. Koja worked with quiet precision, the mud thick and heavy against his fingers. The calf's eye had opened halfway, blinking slowly beneath a crust of clay. Its chest moved with an unsteady rhythm, still shallow, but improving. Breath came in short, soft pulls, followed by the faintest exhale, no louder than grass brushing together in the wind. He wiped gently across the ridge of its face, clearing the folds near the eye, then along the trunk, careful not to press too deep. The calf flinched once beneath his touch, more instinct than fear. Its legs moved again, weak but responsive. Small signs. They were all he had. The mother hadn't shifted again. Her eyes were still open, but her body lay motionless, chest rising in slow arches. Her ears fluttered with each breeze, the skin too dry now, crusted in places where the water no longer reached. But something had changed. Her head, once slack and folded into the ground, lifted by a fraction. A slow tilt, more effort than motion. It hovered just above the mud now, and her gaze held steady on the shape beside her. Koja stepped back, giving them space. The calf, now fully exposed to the open air, dragged its body forward an inch, then another. Its feet slipped beneath it, hooves pressing into the softened trench where it had been hidden. The movement was clumsy, without control, but it was forward. Koja knelt nearby, still, hands low, eyes on the mother. Her trunk shifted, just once, reaching toward the calf in a slow, uncertain arc. It hovered for a moment, mid-air, then dropped gently across the calf's back. Not a grip, not a gesture, just presence, contact. The calf stilled beneath her touch. Then it exhaled sharply, trunk curling in response. Its body relaxed into the mud again, and its head turned toward her. Their foreheads touched. A breath passed between them, quiet, invisible, but unmistakable. Koja did not move. No sound followed, no call, no stir, just the breath, shared. Behind them, the matriarch stepped forward. Her movements were deliberate, heavy, slow. She crossed the distance from the tree line in a wide arc, stopping just short of the two. Her presence filled the space, commanding without force. Koja and the other rangers moved aside without words. The air shifted around her. Her trunk lowered, brushing along the calf's spine. Then it passed over the mother's side, touching behind her ear where the skin was still cool. The mother did not flinch. Her eyes followed the movement. Her ribs expanded, deeper now, breath coming with more strength than before. The calf lifted its head again. Its legs struggled beneath it, pushed, then gave out. But it tried again. Koja stayed where he was, hands resting in the mud, waiting. The matriarch let out a low sound. Not a call, not a warning, but a vibration so soft it barely disturbed the leaves. The calf's ears turned toward it. The mother shifted again, her shoulder rising slightly. A tremble moved through her flank. Then, with effort, she lifted her head fully and held it upright. Koja exhaled slowly, pressing his palm against the ground to steady himself. They weren't safe yet. The mother was still too weak to stand. The calf was far from mobile. But the connection was made. That mattered. In this moment, survival wasn't in the vet's hands, or the sling's straps, or even Koya's care. It lived in the breath they shared, the instinct to recognize, to reach, to remain. The light had softened now. Shadows stretched longer through the clearing. Insects had quieted. The trees swayed with a slow, tired rhythm. The matriarch stood still over them both, her body casting shade across the calf's spine. The mother closed her eyes again, not from retreat, but from rest. Her trunk curled gently at her side. The calf pressed closer into her. And for the first time since morning, the wind moved softly through the grass. The sun had dipped low enough that its light stretched long across the riverbank, turning the mud to gold. Shadows pooled beneath the bodies that remained unmoved for most of the day. The mother's chest still lifted in slow, deliberate breaths. Her calf, pressed close to her side, had grown more restless, not with panic, but with the clumsy urgency of new life. Its legs, though unsure, continued testing the ground, hooves slipping, catching and rising a little higher with each attempt. The matriarch stood a few paces off now, her bulk turned partially toward the trees, as if sensing the moment that had yet to come. Koja hadn't left his place. His arms were coated in dried mud, his knees sore from the weight of stillness. He watched without motion, measuring each shift in posture, each twitch of the calf's tail, and each breath the mother released. Then, a change. It came without signal, without sound. The mother pulled her trunk inward, folding it beneath her chest, and pushed. Her shoulder lifted first. A tremor in the muscles where days of strain had settled. Her forelegs braced. Her hindquarters shifted with effort, hooves pressed deep into the earth. She groaned, low and short, and rose. It wasn't graceful, it wasn't fast, but it was complete. Her body stood, tall and solid again, covered in streaks of dried clay and softened blood, legs shaking beneath her weight but holding. Her ears fanned out, catching the dusk air. For the first time, she looked at her calf from above. The calf stepped back, startled by the movement, then stumbled forward again, legs splaying beneath it. It tried to stand taller but collapsed softly onto its knees. Koja held his breath. The matriarch moved then, with care, circling the calf, her trunk brushing against its side, guiding it forward. With her help, it rose again, wobbled, then stepped. The mother lowered her head and exhaled, trunk reaching, curling beneath the calf's chin. This time, they met standing. The calf leaned into her, eyes still blinking against the dry light, legs unsure but stronger now, tail flicking with the awkward rhythm of newborn balance. Koja stood quietly, not speaking. There was nothing left to offer, nothing to fix, only distance now. The matriarch took one step back, then another. She turned toward the trees. The mother followed slowly, each step an act of recovery. Her body moved with effort but also with decision. She didn't glance behind her. The calf followed, guided gently by the side of her leg, stumbling, then catching up. The three of them, mother, newborn, and sister, moved forward in a slow, broken line. The light grew softer. The sun now touched the tops of the tall trees, turning the leaves to flame. The air smelt of dust and new grass. Somewhere beyond the clearing, a bird called, brief and low, as if echoing the rhythm of retreat. Koja watched until the last trace of their forms disappeared into the brush. He did not move. His arms still hung loose at his sides, caked with the weight of the day. Around him, the clearing had gone still again, as if breath had left with them. The sling lay unused. The trees closed behind them like curtains drawn at the end of a long play, and the wind, at last, passed gently through the grass.